just disappeared.
Derek, come forward.
The most haunted theatre in the world, lost and alone at Drury Lane.
This is feeling very weird.
Hello and welcome to Most Haunted. Now, according to theatrical folklore, it's incredibly lucky to have a resident ghost in a theatre, which must make this week's location one of the luckiest theatres in the world because it has at least 5 ghosts. We're in London at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, and we're going to be spending 24 hours hoping that the resident ghosts are going to put on one big performance.
There's been a theatre on this site since 1661, and the present building dates from 1812, which makes it the oldest theatre in London. It's reputedly the most haunted theatre in the world, and Drury Lane is now almost as famous for its ghosts as for its long-running musicals.
Now, Jason, this is supposed to be the most haunted theatre in the world. Is that true?
Allegedly, yes.
Right. What sort of ghosts are here?
We've got an interesting mixture of different hauntings supposed to be in this building. The main one is probably London's most famous ghost, and that's the Man in Grey, who's supposed to be an actor from the 1700s. One of the strange things about the Man in Grey ghost is that 70 people saw him at the same time. Now, this took place during a photo session on stage. The actors were staring into the darkness and saw a movement here where we're seated, and 70 people watched the Man in Grey walk across this very area.
Now, because of its reputation, a lot of people actually come and try to find ghosts here, don't they?
Yeah, we are actually following the footsteps of the greats, and that is James Wentworth Day, who's a very famous ghost writer, and also Harry Price, who came here. They both held an investigation actually in the upper circle where we're sat here. And James Wentworth Day believes that he actually saw the Man in Grey, but not as a figure, as most people have reported it, more as a sort of blue haze that moved across the area and into the wall.
What do you think might happen to us tonight?
Theatres are eerie places when there's nobody in them. We're used to them being full of people and quite noisy places with music and laughter. When we're here this evening, it's going to be dead silent. There's no windows the outside, so it's very much sort of like being in a shell. So it's going to be a very peculiar kind of environment for us to investigate. I think that will put us on edge. We may see something, we may not, but we've got to remember noises in here are going to be massively echoed because of the shape of the building. So any small, tiny, probably insignificant sound will be blown into probably an unnatural proportion, and we need to keep our feet on the ground.
As usual, joining Jason and myself with a fearless crew, constantly working to try to catch something paranormal on camera. And Derek Okora, our spiritualist medium, would arrive later with no prior knowledge as to the whereabouts of the location.
Theatre Royal Drury Lane is supposedly the most haunted theatre in London. The best known story is the story of the Man in Grey, who is a chap who, dressed in 18th century clothing, walks along the back of the upper circle in the building. Now, he's been sighted on lots of occasions, so people have reported seeing him following the same route across the back of the upper circle and disappearing through a wall. In 1939, over half the cast of the Dancing Years were on stage for a photo call, and they reported seeing this character walking up across the back. Dan Leno was a very famous pantomime dame who performed here at the end of his career. He died in 1904, and he did about 20 pantomimes here as a dame, and he's reported to haunt the backstage areas.
When you know about these ghosts that they're supposed to be here, you sort of think, will I see one? I don't know. And I'm not a one to necessarily believe that they're all around, but when I get out at night, I'm able to cross the stage to the stage door. And one night, I heard like footsteps as I going from the stage to the stage door. And I looked and could see nothing. But I did hear footsteps, and I thought, now, it could be anything.
There's a ghost that people call the Lavender Lady, because the apparition is noticed because you can smell lavender in backstage areas. Also, going back further in time, Joseph Grimaldi, the famous clown, who gave the name Joey to clowns, he used to work between here and Sadler's Wells, and he used to perform here, then run all the way up to Islington to do his next performance at Sadler's Wells, and then run back again. He was incredibly physically fit. He did tumbles and jumps and leaps, and he actually got old far before his time. Had his farewell benefit performance here when he could hardly walk on stage, and he was in his 40s at that stage, but he had crippled himself with the work that he did. And it's rumoured that he haunts the stage area, and if there's any actor that isn't actually giving their best performance, then Grimaldi will come up behind him and give him a kick up the bottom.
I know someone who said he was given a kick at the bum to say, get on with it, because he thought, oh, I can't tonight, oh, God, I can't do it tonight. And he said he didn't know where it came from, but there was a kick up the bum.
Theatre's a very insecure profession, always has been, always will be. Most people's jobs are related to shows, so they can last anything from weeks to years these days. But because of the insecurity, most people in the business tend to be very superstitious. And that's one of the reasons why people like to cling to stories about ghosts and the traditions of the buildings. And that's another thing about superstitions. Superstitions are really traditions, so people like to carry them on because it makes them feel a bit more secure. So, for example, the Scottish play, Shakespeare's play, you would never actually name it unless you were appearing in it or rehearsing in it. That goes back to the original production, which was supposedly fraught with disaster. So people never mention it. It contains real curses. Shakespeare lifted curses that he had heard and included them in there, the witches and the evil, the blood, the killings. So people don't do it. If they do say it, then they have to leave the room they're in, turn around 3 times, spit, and ask for somebody to bring them back into the room, or at least give them permission to come back into the room. Or they can actually do a quote from Hamlet, which is, "Angels of grace defend us," and that will cover them if there's nobody else around as well.
Well, I think you're very brave. Well, I mean, as long as we're all together, it should be quite fun in a way. I don't know, having said that. I hope they're not in here. I don't know. Yeah, no, it'd be great. The auditorium is so beautiful. It's lovely. You know, and I think it's got such history that I love it, really. I do love it, because it's really what I call a real theatre. It's really, I like old-fashioned theatres, and this certainly is that.
Well, I'm as sceptical as anybody about any of these things. There must be a lot of auto-suggestion in it. But when you do hear stories about the man in grey where more than one person has seen him at any one time, and also there was a cleaner who reported seeing him sitting in a seat, who actually described him perfectly well, but it was her first day at work, so she couldn't have spoken to anybody to give her the idea to report it. It does make you wonder. So I'm sceptical, but I'm prepared to believe that there's something to it.
It's easy to understand why people fall in love with the theatre, and especially in a building as beautiful as this. Maybe that's why some people refuse to leave, even when they're dead. In the late 1700s, a fight broke out between 2 of the actors. One lunged at the other with his cane, piercing his eye and instantly killing him. But curiously enough, it's not the dead man that haunts Drury Lane, but his murderer, and he's often seen early evening at the time when the fight broke out. One of the most famous characters here is Joseph Grimaldi, who was known as the father of the clowns. Now, the clown makeup that he created has been copied by British clowns ever since.
With Derek's arrival and the theatre well into its evening's performance, what better time to relax and prepare for the night's events?
Well, when we're at the theatre tonight, I really don't know at this point what to expect. And generally, wherever you find expression as with actors and theatres, what is charged in the atmosphere, I find, is this gentleness, this sensitivity.
Most